My name is Elliot Hale, and I was 13 the first time I heard something that made my whole world stop, not a scream or a siren, but a voice so pure, it felt like it had been pulled straight from heaven. It happened in the most boring place imaginable, Blanchard Middle School, tucked in the outskirts of Boise, Idaho. Our school wasn't known for much. The football team was mediocre. The cafeteria food was almost aggressively bad. But what we did have, oddly enough, was a world-class choir director, Mr. Julian Gray. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with silvering hair and posture so straight he could have balanced a dictionary on his head. No one knew much about him. He never talked about his life outside school. But he knew music. He didn't just teach us notes. He taught us how to make people feel. When he raised his baton, even the class clowns shut up. Still, there was something odd about him. Whispers floated through the hallways, always behind his back. He was too graceful, talked too softly, wore weird shoes. But he never flinched. He never raised his voice. He just conducted. And I adored him. As someone who felt out of place in their own skin, who dreaded every locker room, avoided mirrors, and secretly lip-synced pop divas alone in the dark, I saw something in him. A quiet defiance. A softness that wasn't weakness. But everything changed the night I forgot my binder in the music room. It was almost 6 p.m. when I crept back into the building. The hallways were eerie in their emptiness. My sneakers squeaked against the polished tile. I reached the music room and froze. The lights were off. But the door was cracked open. And someone was singing. It was a woman's voice, high, haunting, impossibly beautiful. A mournful ballad in Italian. I didn't recognize the words, but I felt them. They wrapped around my ribs and squeezed until I forgot to breathe. Curious, I pushed the door open a little more. And that's when I saw her. The woman in the long maroon dress. She stood at the piano, her back to me, singing like her heart was bleeding. Her shoulders moved with every phrase. Her arms flowed with emotion. Her silver wig shimmered in the low light. I blinked. No, it wasn't a woman. It was Mr. Gray. I gasped, loud enough that he turned around. We locked eyes. His mascara smudged. His lips parted. And for the first time ever, I saw fear in the eyes of the most composed man I knew. Elliot. He whispered, voice raw and trembling. What are you doing here? I left my binder, I stammered, every thought crashing into the next. He nodded slowly. Then did something unexpected. He sat down on the piano bench and sighed. Not angrily. Not like he was about to scold me. But like someone who had carried something for too long. You saw, he said flatly. I heard, I replied softly. That was beautiful. He tilted his head, surprised. You're not disgusted? I shook my head. No. I think I finally get it. He gave a small, broken laugh. Then gestured for me to sit beside him. That night, in a darkened music room, Mr. Julian Gray told me everything. About Julia, the woman he used to become in the privacy of his home. The only version of himself that felt whole. About the dreams he buried after college because the world wouldn't let a trans woman teach music in small-town Idaho. About how he used music as his disguise and his salvation. No one's ever heard Julia sing, he said, brushing a tear from his cheek. Until you. And for the first time, I shared something too. That I had a voice inside me that didn't match the one I used when I spoke. That I'd been secretly trying on my sister's clothes when no one was home. That sometimes, when I sang to myself, I imagined I was someone else, someone lighter, freer, real. We sat there for hours. Two broken voices, finding harmony in each other. The next day, I expected things to go back to normal. They didn't. Mr. Gray pulled me aside after class and handed me a plain envelope. Inside was a flyer for the Northwest Vocal Youth Showcase, a statewide competition. You should audition, he said gently. I laughed. Me? I'd have to go as her. He smiled. Then maybe it's time she got a name. That night, standing in front of my mirror, eyeliner in one trembling hand and a wig borrowed from the drama department in the other, she came to life. A soft voice whispered back from the glass. My name is Elise. And the music, the real music, was just beginning. The morning of the audition dawned cold and gray, typical for Idaho in March, but my nerves were burning hot under my skin. I stood in my bedroom, staring at the clothes on my bed, a soft lavender blouse, a black skirt that reached just past the knees, and ballet flats that pinched slightly but made me feel graceful. Every part of me trembled. Not just because I was about to sing in front of strangers, but because this would be Elise's first time stepping out into the world. Elise wasn't a costume. She was the truth I'd kept buried under boyhood hoodies and play-it-safe silence. And now she was about to be seen. My mom knocked once and peeked into the room. "Ready?" she asked. I braced myself for the sigh, the lecture, the awkward question, but instead, her eyes filled with tears. "Oh, honey," she whispered, walking over and fixing the collar of my blouse. "You look just like I did at your age." I blinked. "You're okay with this?" She smiled through tears. "I think I always knew. I was just waiting for you to tell me who you are." I nearly collapsed into her arms, all my tension spilling out at once. She held me for a long time before pulling back and whispering, "Now go. Show them who Elise is." At the Community Arts Center, the waiting room buzzed with chatter. Girls in every shade of pastel warmed up their vocal cords. A mom was ironing a dress in the corner. One girl in sequins was applying lip gloss in the reflection of her flute. And then, there was me. Or rather, Elise. I sat quietly, heart pounding, hands icy. No one paid me much attention, which was somehow a relief and a disappointment. Mr. Gray sat beside me, his calm presence anchoring my chaos. "Remember," he said, "they're not here to judge your story. They're here to hear your voice." "But what if I started?" "They won't," he cut in gently. "And if they do, they don't deserve to hear you." His words steadied me. When they finally called my number 53, I stood on legs that barely felt real. The hall was vast and silent, a grand piano resting like a sleeping beast at the center. The judges sat behind a long table, eyes expressionless. "Elise Carter," I said, my voice higher than usual, but steady. "I'll be singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow." There was a pause. Then the pianist nodded. The music began. And for those 2 minutes, I forgot everything. I forgot the fear. I forgot Elliot. I forgot the world that told me I had to pick a side before I could be loved. I just sang. And I saw the judges' faces shift from bored professionalism to stunned silence. One of them even blinked back tears. When I finished, I lowered the mic, heart thudding like a drum line. No one clapped. Not because they didn't want to, but because they didn't know how to respond. It was like I'd broken some unspoken rule of reality. And then, softly, the woman in the center leaned forward and asked, "Elise, how long have you been singing?" I swallowed. "Since forever. But this is the first time it's felt like me." She nodded. "Thank you." Back in the lobby, Mr. Gray was waiting. "How'd it go?" he asked, trying to read my face. I shrugged. "They didn't throw tomatoes." He laughed, then glanced around. "Come on. Let's get out of here before someone decides to make a headline out of this." But as we turned to leave, we heard someone shout, "Excuse me, Elise." It was the judge, the one who'd spoken to me. She jogged over and pressed an envelope into my hand. "This is early," she said with a smile. But we didn't need a second round to know. I looked down. My hands shook as I opened it. "Congratulations. You've been selected as a finalist for the Northwest Youth Showcase." I gasped. Mr. Gray just smiled, proud, relieved, and a little misty-eyed. "Told you," he whispered. But that was only the beginning. Because the finalist concert would be televised. Statewide. And if I accepted, Elise wouldn't just be a name whispered between me, my mom, and Mr. Gray. She'd be public. And not everyone was ready for that. Especially not my best friend, Lucas, who'd known Elliot since 2nd grade and had no idea Elise existed. By Monday morning, the buzz had already started. The school hallways, normally filled with lazy chatter and the squeak of sneakers, now crackled with whispers. "Did you see the clip from the showcase? That girl. Elise something?" Her voice gave me chills. "She's from here. I swear I saw her at the gas station." I kept my head down and my hoodie up, trying to disappear into the crowd. Elise had made her debut. Elliot was still enrolled in 7th period science and had a locker with peeling stickers. And that's the problem. They didn't know we were the same person. I should have told Lucas earlier. He was my best friend. The kind of guy who shared everything: memes, snacks, insecurities. We played video games every Saturday and had an unspoken pact to protect each other from the brutal gauntlet of middle school masculinity. And now I had a secret so massive it felt like a wall between us. We were walking home like usual, the sun low and warm behind us. Lucas kept glancing at his phone, rewatching the clip from the audition showcase. Have you seen this girl, Elise? She's, like, unreal. I've never heard anyone sing like that. My heart thudded. She's all right, I said, trying not to flinch. All right? Dude, she could win the whole thing. He paused. Wait, that necklace she's wearing, it looks just like yours. He looked at me, eyes narrowing. Is that a coincidence, or? I stopped walking. There was no good way to say it. So I just pulled out my phone, opened the clip, and turned the brightness up. That is my necklace, I said softly. Because that is me. Lucas stared. His smile twitched, confused. Wait, what? I'm Elise, I said, voice shaking. It's not a prank. Not a dare. Not a costume. It's me. The real me. The silence was brutal. Lucas blinked, mouth slightly open. So, what does that mean? You're dressing up. It's not dressing up, I whispered. It's being. Elise is who I am. And I don't want to keep pretending otherwise. He looked down at the sidewalk. I waited. 10 seconds. 20. Then he finally spoke. Why didn't you tell me? Tears welled in my eyes. Because I was scared you'd hate me. He looked up, and to my surprise, his eyes were red too. I don't hate you, he said, voice raw. But I'm not gonna lie. This is a lot. I need time. And then he walked away. I cried all the way home. Mom tried to console me, but her words felt like fog. That night, I skipped dinner and sat at the piano in the dark, staring at my reflection in the glossy wood. Who was I kidding? Maybe Elise didn't belong outside the music room. Maybe the world just wasn't ready. But then, something happened. The next morning, I opened my locker and found an envelope. Inside was a note, written in blocky handwriting. She was beautiful. He is brave. You are both. Lucas. Folded inside was a bracelet. Rainbow beads. Handmade. My hands trembled as I put it on. The media attention ramped up fast. The local news station aired my audition. An online article ran with the headline, Mysterious vocalist from Blanchard stuns judges. Who is Elise Carter? Mr. Gray called me into his office one afternoon. He looked worried. There's a producer from a national talk show, he said, sliding his phone toward me. They want you to perform. Live. My heart skipped. Like, national television? He nodded. But there's something you need to know first. His voice dropped low, serious. Before I came to Blanchard, I wasn't just Mr. Gray. I had a different name. A different life. I used to teach at a prestigious conservatory in New York as Julia Gray. I froze. You were out as her? He nodded slowly. Until a parent found out and had me fired. Quietly. No lawsuit. No headlines. Just gone. My throat tightened. That's why you came here? It's why I stayed here, he said softly. I told myself it was safer to hide than to fight. He looked at me then, eyes burning, vulnerable. But watching you, Elise, you reminded me what courage looks like. I accepted the talk show offer. Because if Julia had been forced into silence and Elise had just found her voice, maybe it was time to change things. Maybe it was time for both of us to step into the light. The night before the show, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was nervous about performing. I'd done that already. I was nervous because, for the first time, I wouldn't just be singing. I would be seen. By cameras. By strangers. By millions of people who didn't know Elise existed until now and might not believe she should.